welcome to Metaphysical. Can't tell you how much I love that opening.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. John, how are you?
Doing really well. How about yourself?
Very good. So for all of you at home, I'm Rob Counts, and with me, as always, is John Vivanco over here, who is a remote viewer, which we'll be getting into soon. And I am a researcher. And we just kind of figured y'all at home would love to hear our phone calls. So we decided to take it on the podcast.
Yeah, we're just doing video calls now and recording.
Exactly. And today we have a very, very cool episode set up for you guys that's going to be about natural and unnatural Earth portals. That's right. Portals to somewhere else, the underworld. We don't really know, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on planet Earth. And John and I have both done different types of independent research on this, and it's going to be really fun to talk about.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Portals, what can you say? I mean, everybody knows what a portal is, but I don't know how many people have actually seen them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like built into our...
Yeah, it's a part of our culture.
Yeah. Like, why is that, though? Is it pop culture? Is it like movies or something? Like, what is it?
Honestly, I think it's movies. It's like, okay, so think about how ancient cultures used to live. Ancient cultures used to tell the story of their history verbally, right? Through word of mouth. I mean, it passed down history to history or person to person, their whole history. Nowadays, what we have are movies and TV shows. And I think that some of this stuff, like the TV show Stargate or the movie Stargate, I think that these are, in a sense, kind of soft disclosure of things that have been going on under the surface. But it's a really curious thing how our history these days has turned into this type of media, like the storytelling aspect of our history is full media, recorded media now, when for hundreds, thousands of years beyond that, it's just word of mouth.
That's true. Yeah. Word of mouth or kind of written down in different poems and right. Stuff that kind of got distributed, especially down in like Greek culture and stuff. I mean,
oh yeah.
It's kind of bizarre that the first recorded history is like 500 BC. Like that doesn't.
No, really it doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make. Well, that's we get into the whole issue of cyclical time, the yugas, the ages. The Greeks have got the ages. The Hindus have got the yugas. Other cultures, the Toltecs have got these ages. Many cultures have these ages, and this whole beginning of time thing, or around 500 BC or 4,000 years ago or whatever, is literally actually the beginning of the Kali Yuga. But there were previous ages with previous cultures before that.
And the Kali Yuga is what exactly for everyone at home?
The Kali Yuga is an age within the cycle of time called the yugas. It's akin to how the Greeks have the ages as well, from the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and then it goes back up towards the Golden Age again. It's the same with the yugas from the Hindus. It's the same concept, right? And it just goes in a cycle. And in between these ages are when things get reset, things get destroyed. We have meteors hitting the earth, whatever. But it seems to be this very cyclical thing, and it follows the precessional equinox. So I think that a lot of our history, human history, and even beyond whatever was here before, has been wiped out catastrophically. And so when people think of how far back our history goes, well, we've got documentation that goes back to such and such time, and that's it. So that had to have been when we started to use our brains for putting down symbols in books to relay concepts to each other. So I don't believe that for a second, though. I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a.
I think there's documentation. Well, when you get to the Vedas, the Hindus, there's documentation that is considered mythology now. We consider it mythology because humans didn't develop this.
Oh, it's like the Bible, even. All the stories in that are mythology, right? Like, and everyone in the past was so stupid. And
Exactly. And it's this linear progression upward, always upwards theory of Darwinism, right?
Well, and indeed, like in the past, in text, like there's some stuff that's hard to accept, like the fact that humans could live past 100, for instance. You know, in the Bible, you have like Noah living till what, like 600, 900 years old, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So like, how do you accept that? But then the more research you do, the more you find that that could have been the case, depending on how the oxygen levels of the earth were and all of this stuff, right?
Right. It's like shortly after when the automobile was invented, nobody thought you can go faster than like 20 miles an hour. Otherwise, your face will get ripped off. You know, and then you read these ancient documents, and it's like people were living to 600 years old. Like, oh, can we even get past 100? Probably not. Too scary.
I'm really glad your face doesn't get ripped off when you go over 20. It'd be awful.
It'd be awful.
We'd be traveling around really slowly.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, the cycle of the ages has really fascinated me because you've got the Mahabharata coming from the Indians, the Hindus, and it is literally a historical document from the previous age before Christianity established itself, right? So you can dig and find these really ancient documents from deep earth past where there was a whole different thing going on, a totally different thing. When you get into Krishna and the blue beings, heck, when we've remote viewed other places across the universe, we get the same blue beings. Like they just show up in the data, and they are exactly like what the Hindus
what we see in their artwork, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing. So,
John, just because you touched on it, can you tell everyone at home what remote viewing is, just so that they're aware?
Yeah, remote viewing is really a way to get non-local information, anything that is not perceivable by your five senses in that moment. So anything outside of your five senses, right? Could be on the other side of the universe, the earth, it could be next door.
Could even be in another time, right?
Yeah. Another time, the future, the past. And we use multiple remote viewers to look at specific things, and they never know what they're looking at. They never know what they're remote viewing before they remote view it, because then they can confabulate.
The human mind can add in notions to that and affect the data that's coming back, right?
Right. And then we correlate all the data, the points between the remote viewers to build the picture of what's there.
Well, and if everyone at home thinks that concept is crazy, I mean, the CIA has been doing a lot of work that you find documents on the CIA website where they're doing work on remote viewing or having remote viewers do work for them. And different intelligence agencies, three-letter agencies have utilized remote viewers, historically speaking, over the last 100 years quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, before remote viewing, the bureaucratized version, it was like leaders going to oracles, right? I mean,
which we're strangely going to get into in probably episode 2 of this. Yeah. But so portals. It's such an interesting discussion, and I think I'm not exactly how to pronounce this, but Aramu
Muru.
I haven't come across this. What is this, John?
Well, this is a site near Lake Titicaca in Peru, and it's literally this big, huge cliff wall that's been a false door has been cut into it. So a false door is a door that doesn't go anywhere. It looks like a door, but it's flat. It just doesn't go anywhere. And false doors were used in Egypt, in many different cultures, as they put them in tombs, and they were a signifier of the doorway that you go through to pass into death.
Get to the other side.
Right, to get to the other side. But we find these. There you go, Aramu Muru. But we find these in different cultures across the whole world. Nearly every culture has some idea about a false door and what it's for. We've seen them in Turkey, we've seen them in Egypt, we've seen them in Europe. They're all over the place. And when we remote view some of these things, each one is different. Like I know there's even one that's supposed to be a gate to hell. I don't remember where. It might be in Greece. I don't know. It could be one of those that you know about, since you go down that pathway, right? So Aramu Muru is interesting because when we remote viewed it is this like connection point of earth energies. It's like a node of earth energies. And you hear people talk about this and this is a new age concept, I think, where they talk about how earth energies, ley lines will converge at specific points. And at those specific points is where you will find an increased amount of energy. And that energy can be used for different things or represents different things. So for instance, in Sedona, Arizona,
that's considered a really big, like, vortex or something.
Right. You've got the vortex. So you've got a lot of cross points there of nodes, and that's putting out an energy, right? So there's different types of portals. That's like an energy portal.
Mm.
It's not necessarily this, portal to another dimension, but it's a healing portal. Healing energy exists here. And then when you get to Aramu Muru, that's actually a portal, which in our data, it talks about it literally moving through a tunnel to another world, another dimension. And we've seen in remote viewing data where people get sucked into it, and they kind of end up in this sort of washing machine state unless there's an intention to go somewhere. And they'll either come back out. And literally, there are stories about people who have done this too.
Like recent stories, or
yeah, recent stories. I can't remember the guy's name. I'll have to dig it up another time. But this guy claimed that happened to him. And that's exactly what we see in our data when we see people who go into the portal there. And there's a story about these musicians who were, it's interesting because these musicians were playing for a wedding party in front of that area. And this is more in recent times. And they hit specific notes. And this is another interesting aspect about this place. They hit specific frequencies, specific notes. That excited a piezoelectric charge in the rock. See, this is the whole thing about it. It's like there's a convergence of piezoelectricity, of ley line energy, natural earth energy that creates these places, right? And they hit specific notes that opened it up. And they say that these musicians were sucked in forever, gone forever, right?
Like they'd never seen again.
Never seen again. Right. Never seen again. So that place is very fascinating from the standpoint of it literally from remote viewing data being an active portal. Some of these we find there's nothing really there, right? It's just somebody's making up a story. But this one seems to be a real thing. And it's based off of opening up, going in is based off of specific notes or frequencies. And you find that a lot.
Mm. So maybe their culture was set up around different frequencies, and that's how they discovered this. And that's very interesting.
Well, no. So when we looked at like what this is, when it came about, this goes back to the previous ages here.
Yeah, like an ancient civilization.
Right. So and with remote viewing, I've really developed a huge like cosmology of what has happened on this planet, and where we've come from. I mean, absolutely not everything, because there's major holes everywhere in my understanding. But what it appears to be, and we see this at different sites across this planet. There are other locations where the same thing happened. So this portal was used as an escape point during major cataclysm and wars in a previous civilization of human and alien subjects. And we found this as well with the tombs at Saqqara, right, in Egypt. So the tombs at Saqqara that are the so-called Apis bull tombs, because they didn't know what they were for because they're so huge. When we remote viewed that was literally the same kind of idea as Aramu Muru. People going underground, going into these locations that are a different type of technology to transport them to a different place, because there's cataclysm, there's war going on this planet. We also find it at other sites too, Gobekli Tepe. Same thing. Anything that we have that is a deep underground civilization, you find these where they've carved out a city underground. Same situation. They were escaping from what was going on the surface. And this is pre-Christianity, all pre-Christianity.
Were the conditions on Earth different? Or, I mean,
on Earth were different. You had, as far as remote viewing data goes, it points to different types of beings who were fighting over position and influence on this planet.
So not materials, actually. It was like position and influence.
A lot of it is position and influence. Well, think about humans. Humans are a resource, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and, yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. We're a little farm. So So a lot of it was position and influence over humans and controlling what happens on this planet. There you go. I mean, these types of sites were built when they go underground. And the interesting thing about this particular site, I think this is Gobeleki Tepe. I always massacre the name. It was actually covered up by somebody. It didn't get rolled over with dirt, mud, and rocks by a natural phenomena. It was literally dirt was deposited over it to cover it and hide it, which is a fascinating thing. Why did that happen? Right?
Yeah, why? Why hide that?
Right. Why hide that? It looks like, as far as remote viewing goes, it could be related to portal type aspect under the ground there, and they wanted to keep it closed and contained.
Now, we're not talking about a portal into an underground area. You're talking about a portal to somewhere else.
Somewhere else. Right. Right. So ancient technology utilized Earth type locations and energies ultimately. And then when you get to places like Stonehenge, Avebury, locations like that, these sites are sort of a remembrance of how it used to be on this planet. And so they were trying to recreate to a degree what it used to be like, because there was an understanding of this ancient technology. And they didn't have all of the ducks in a row in order to recreate it after cataclysms. So they erected things like Avebury and Stonehenge to try to consolidate that energy.
So Stonehenge, basically what you're saying is Stonehenge was made, from your perspective or from your data, after the fact. Like,
yeah,
this is more recent structures that were built to remember past technologies.
I mean, they're incredibly old, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with we had a cataclysm, and then they were trying to remember to like how to rebuild what was here before. Some of the stuff could have been before these cataclysms as well, because they had interaction or effect or a little bit of knowledge of what was going on elsewhere on Earth, and they knew about it, and they're trying to do it too.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a lot of these are very much, trying to recreate something that they saw or knew of elsewhere that consolidated Earth energies that can be used. I mean, heck, today, a lot of highly powerful charged spots on this planet are taken over by government, military, and churches.
Yeah, why?
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing as in the past. It's like you put something there to take that energy. I mean, you just do. It's just that the people at large don't understand this.
Or to keep people sleepy, really.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to have a narrative like we have on Earth right now when everybody knows about everything that's actually here.
Right.
How could we have the beliefs that we have right now?
Yeah.
If everybody knew about everything, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, it's interesting right now, this whole thing about fusion, right? They put out, the energy department put out this thing about fusion. Which,
yeah, I saw that.
Come on, like this is wholly politically motivated. I mean, fusion has been around. This has been in black projects for, I don't know, for at least from the 50s and 60s.
For a while, yeah.
For a while. And so a lot of this stuff, people are put in this just weird little carnival world with just, I don't know, just quick sensory information in front of them to keep chasing after, and just put in a little box that way. It's very strange to me what happens here. That's very confounding.
It's confusing. I think, yeah, it is confusing. Actually, we could probably do a separate episode just on that.
Yeah, we could.
Like, why is it like this?
Yeah.
I actually think there's a lot of reasons for that that we could get into. But that is a different episode.
Yeah.
And we're talking about cool stuff today. So, one of the things that you and I experienced together was a very strange, collectively strange experiences that people have had, and we have had at Mount Adams in Washington. Mount Adams, depending on like where you're standing, I guess you could say, from about 12 miles away, there are lights coming off of that mountain that are very, very difficult to explain. I mean,
yeah, you saw stuff there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what I mean by I saw stuff is I saw lights on the mountain flickering that I couldn't explain, and they definitely were not campfires. I mean, we're talking about lights probably in the right side of that mountain somewhere.
Yep.
Where, according to how big the light was, it would have to have been, hundreds and hundreds of feet wide, that light.
Right.
And a campfire just wouldn't produce the same way, and it wouldn't go away. That's the thing. Like, these lights would come and go. And it was the first thing I saw when I got there. Is I was just confused, and I was like, hey, what are those lights on the mountain? And then I just got this bizarre feeling, and people were kind of trying to explain to me what was going on. And I was just like, what? Because I'd never seen anything. Like, I went to that area thinking I was going to see stuff in the sky, and I ended up seeing more stuff on the mountain that confused me than anything else.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The area, regular people just write it off as people climbing the mountain, and those are the campfires or lights. But the area that the lights predominantly come from are not the area that anybody can even get to.
Yeah.
And it's literally, okay, so I've been up there. I've explored that mountain like crazy. I have been above tree line in that area where all the lights are, and it's all rotten volcanic rock, meaning that you've got avalanches that are occurring on a regular basis of rock, and these very unstable ridgeline slopes that you walk up. People don't go up there.
You can't
go up there. I mean, I nearly killed myself traveling around up there because of the rotten rock. The volcanic gases have completely broken down the rock. You can't go there. And I can't even get to the areas where the lights are because I was trying to get to those areas. And the way that the people go to climb the mountain is not that way. It's just not that way when they go to peak it. Absolutely not. So those lights are really, really fascinating. And we've done extensive remote viewing on how they form, why they form, where they're coming from. And what we have there, the viewers actually describe a gate, which is different. Normally when remote viewers are viewing something portal-like, they're going to say a portal. But for this, they actually kept calling it
a door,
a gate. Curiously, a gate. And I thought that language is interesting. So another thing
is interesting because it's like, oh yeah, I let you into my backyard and you came in through the gate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now here's the other thing that I found very strange with the data around this. The other thing that they call the lights coming out of it, they'll call it a chariot or a vimana.
So just so that everyone knows, Dom, what you're showing is a light above the mountain. What we're talking about are lights on the mountain.
But sometimes they'll fly off the mountain.
Sometimes they will fly off. So what that could be is something that has flown off for sure. But on the mountain, in different areas of the mountain, there are these strange lights that are occurring. So sorry, go ahead, John. I just wanted everyone at home to understand. But Dom, thank you for showing that stuff.
So whenever we remote view anything UFO or portal related, they say UFO, anti-gravity, blah, blah, blah. Like there's this whole there's like a dictionary of terms they use, right? Is because they're sensing, they're perceiving something, they're getting an experience, and that experience is drawing them to make these types of explanations about it. Now, when you get to Mount Adams, they don't call it a portal like they normally do. They call it a gate. They don't call these lights UFOs like they normally do. They don't say aliens like they normally do. They say vimana. They say chariot. Why? Why?
That's really strange.
Isn't it strange?
Interesting.
That I found that really, really, really curious. So when we look at the lights, one of the things, I mean, I've remote viewed it extensively as well myself. And one of the things that happens, like when you're remote viewing, you're feeling it, the light is moving in this pattern, really, 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 really fast in this pattern. I'm viewing it this one time. I'm like, it's a star. It's like a star shape. It's moving in a star shape really fast. And then I get other data from other viewers, and they're saying the same thing. It's this light's in a star shape. It's moving in a star shape. I'm like, what? Why is it moving in a star shape? And then I'm like, this is a Merkaba. It's the shape of a Merkaba. right? Which is a curious thing, because when you get to like Ezekiel's wheel and that type of stuff, these biblical type references, they interchange.
Merkaba is an ancient term, right?
They'll interchange it with chariot.
Hmm.
They'll interchange it with chariot.
Mm.
And the chariot is what pulls God or a god, one of the gods, right?
Right. Lots of paintings of these.
Right.
Look them up.
So there's no difference between a Merkaba and a chariot. They're the same thing, right? Vamana is the same thing. It carried the ancient aliens, the god ancient aliens, right? From the past. And so what the viewers are all saying is that this is something ancient. We are using ancient terms to describe this location because these things are not grays flying around an anti-gravity craft. This is something totally different. Totally. Now, I believe that the reason why they call it a gate is because it's a gate to a higher realm, a gate to another dimension. What do people call the gate? They call it the gate to heaven.
Wow. So is it that we can see lights on this mountain because the veil is thin there and we're seeing something like almost.
No, they're literally, the veil is thin. Yes, absolutely, for sure. But I think that we see them because that's where they are, because there is a gate there to another realm and they're protecting it. Now, here's the other weird thing. When we remote viewed this as well, and this other people have talked about this, and this is actually quite shocking to me. I mean, remember, this is blind remote viewing. You're not
no one knows what they're viewing. They're just telling you what to see.
Like one session they're viewing the Eiffel Tower for practice, training purposes, and they don't know what they're viewing then. The next session can be on Mount Adams, one of the crazy lights, right? So they don't know what they're getting ever. So they were describing feline-like beings in the data that were creating these light formations that were coming out of this gate. Okay, now put all that together. When you get into like, there's no way to explain this stuff.
Yeah, how do you explain that to someone?
Other than going into like new age thoughts and ideas and aliens, what people have out there, or you can go into referencing aspects of the Bible. And I know this is the stuff that pisses people off. Like I've found that when I bring this kind of stuff up, people will go apoplectic on me sometimes because you're bringing up the Bible, you're referencing the Bible, right? And I'm not, I'm Buddhist. I grew up Zen. I just look for research correlations is all I ever do. I'm a researcher and a remote viewer. So what is it that protects the throne of God? The lion. What is it that pulls the chariot of God, the four faces of God, the lion, right? So here in remote viewing data land, we've got this feline being who's creating a Merkaba, which is interchangeable with the chariot that pulls a god, and it's protecting a gate. And the lion within Christian mythology, it's all of that. Like it like lines up with that.
I don't understand why there would be flipping out over that when there's angels that we don't necessarily see, but that could occur somewhere else. But we accept those as fact. But why this would, if anything, I would imagine this would confirm what's in the Bible, not take away from,
Exactly. But I don't know. I mean, it's such a controversial, it's getting even more and more controversial these days. Like going back to the Bible and referencing it for research purposes. I know the Bible is a huge mishmash of stuff that's not exactly
that no one really understands, to be fair, right?
Exactly.
Like I can't say that I understand it completely, and another person can't say they understand it completely. The only it's up to your understanding of what those things mean, and everybody's at a different place with that,
Yeah, exactly. But when I get to like referencing the Bible with this, it's like the same with remote viewing. Like I don't even know what the remote viewing data is ultimately saying. It's saying a lot of weird stuff. And the only way I can correlate it is through that document, which is fascinating to me. Absolutely 100% fascinating to me, because that is, in my mind at least, I've been in remote viewing so long that when we do projects on these things, they're real. They're a reality. And that leads me into doing deeper exploring physically around it. And literally that place, I believe, is a gate, dimensional doorway to a higher realm. It's a portal to a higher realm, a higher location. Absolutely is. And these beings are there to service it, protect it, and whatever else they're doing. And those are those lights you saw.
Yeah, and it's kind of incredible that more people aren't aware of this thing, right? Because like when I went there, I just got this like the strangest feeling. I was like, I was just like, this is, there aren't many instances in your life where you get that particular quality of mysterious feeling. You know what I mean? But that was like,
I know, it's amazing. I mean, we're doing this one shoot with Ancient Aliens about Mount Adams, and me and my team were remote viewing phenomena around Mount Adams, right? And so at one point they're like doing some filming out in this field, and there's this light that just like goes, just appears out of nowhere in the sky above the mountain. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm yelling and pointing at it. And I'm not supposed to be because they're filming and stuff. And I'm sure I'm like somewhere and they're going, and this light gets so huge, and they're so busy focused on like recreating something at that moment that they don't even see it until it's just disappearing. But this is what I noticed happened on a regular basis. This one light would appear above the mountain at the same time every day. And then
that's kind of like the photo that Dom showed a few minutes ago.
It's kind of like that. Yeah, kind of like that. Now, one thing about that light is that when it appears, you feel this like shot of amazing energy going through your heart. Like boom, like you're floored when that thing appears. Just incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that place is something else.
Yeah.
And now that we've talked about the positive, what is the Lucifer's telescope?
Oh man, you want to talk about that?
Well, what is it? I don't know what it is.
What a juxtaposition there. All right, we're gonna go from heaven to hell.
And then we'll go back to heaven really quick somehow.
All right, you want to talk about the Lucifer telescope that the Vatican runs?
Is that what this is?
Is that what you want? Is that the one you want to talk about?
Yeah. No, it is.
All right. Let me find. Okay, so the Lucifer telescope is in Arizona, and actually it was the Vatican. And
you mean they own this land, John?
The University of Arizona. So the University of Arizona and the Vatican, there it is, Lucifer. It's an acronym. I need to like dig up what the acronym is. It's the Large Binocular Telescope Near Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research. That's the acronym. Acronym is Lucifer. Got it?
Yeah.
So
purpose.
Isn't that weird? Anyway, it was the Vatican that spearheaded this location of all places with the University of Arizona, and they run it jointly, but mostly it's the Vatican. Okay, so
why would the Vatican approve of a telescope that they partly own being called that? That's mysterious to me.
Isn't it mysterious?
Unless scientists just have they're like, did it to make a point and to laugh at them or something.
Well, I know, but it's the same thing as the CERN logo. I mean, it's like,
dude, the CERN logo is...
Yeah, it's like, give me that 666, baby. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So have you seen the Snake Cathedral that is?
Yes, dude. Yes, the building is out of control.
It's out of control. So anyway, Lucifer. So we had remote viewed this. It's a really interesting thing. So we tasked specifically on, what was the reason for building that, putting that there. And the reason literally in the data was talking about they are tracking an object, a specific object in deep space that is which is of a major threat and also of relevancy to stuff that they know about, biblical type stuff. So that particular area was, there you go, Mount Graham, Vatican owned. That particular area was the best vantage point, best place that they could try and track this object from, right? So they're literally tracking something that they know about that is headed towards Earth that probably references some documentation that they have And that's why they went after this. That's why they did this.
Hmm.
Now, one of the curious parts about all of this is that when we remote viewed it, and there are legends around this as well, is they took the land from the Apache. They literally just took the land. There were so many protests about it. Like, why are you taking our land? Like, you have no reason to do it. Well, we want to just build this thing and you guys can't come near it. Now the native peoples, it's a sacred mountain for them. Now the native peoples can't even go near it without giving them 10 days notice on paper. Like, they can't go use the land that they've used for centuries for
Right.
the ceremonies anymore. So, which is typical. But what we found was that a lot of the native lore revolve around portals in the location, dimensional portals in the location. So digging on that aspect on the remote viewing side, it was literally this idea. Now, who knows if this idea can come to fruition, but it really correlated with an idea that somehow there could be an escape hatch in this area for these people, the Vatican, to get out before it comes. So if they take over the area, they can understand how these natural portals work.
Before what comes, though?
What comes? What is it? It's an galactic object is what it is.
Are they calling it Lucifer because they feel like they're tracking Lucifer? I mean, no, I'm asking here. Like, I don't think
those are good questions. Good question. I don't know. Honestly,
like, it must be some type of comet, or
it's a comet. It's a comet. So in remote viewing, it's hard when we remote view what it is. It's some type of extragalactic object. It's like the remote viewers don't go, comet or Planet X, Nibiru, whatever. They don't say that kind of stuff. They literally just talk about flying debris and rocks in space, right? Could be a comet, could be something like that. Could be just a huge meteor shower, could be something like that. But it's something that the Vatican knows about. And what I think is that I'm a proponent of catastrophism. You know, catastrophism is one of those things that happens in between these ages.
Right.
And so I honestly believe like the Vatican and Western culture has covered up that aspect of Earth history. And they've got documentation that they took from the earlier ages and knew what happened to some
and kind of are hoarding it. Right.
And as we move through our local system here, we move through these periods of time where we go through these, asteroid belts. Stuff is flying out of the Oort belt in specific directions at certain points in time. And they know what these schedules are because they've got the documents and they've hidden it. Right. So I believe that really that's what it is. It's not a mystery. I mean, like, you know, I think I've said this before. If you listen to Randall Carlson, geologist fella, talks about this kind of stuff. He says if you peel back all of the dirt from the Earth, it's going to be as pockmarked as the moon because we just get hit with stuff. You know, I mean, hit with stuff constantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So anyway, there is that idea that's floated around where they are looking for an out. And I think, you know, this whole portal aspect showed up along with it. Whether they can pull that off or not, I don't know.
Okay, so one more we might be able to fit in here for episode 1. Pumapunku. Yeah, the Gate of the Sun. Now, that's a curious one. You know that one. That's down around Lake Titicaca. It's actually near Aramu Muru. The first one we're talking about. Yeah, it's nearby. It's a huge complex. And the Gate of the Sun was always said to be a portal. Interesting. This is going to be really interesting in part 2 when we start talking about CERN. There's some things that I found related to this.
Yes, exactly. So to me, it's like when we remote viewed that, the original intention of that thing, it was for a complex that would bring other beings through a gate, through a portal. Right. And that's an aspect of it. That particular construction, the Gate of the Sun, is a particular construction that would fit into the whole construction. So they, like I said before, would use earth energy to really power these things and then build around it with piezoelectric type rocks. Right. And they probably use tonal frequencies to open and close these things. And to me, it's like Aramu Muru is kind of like a marker point. It's like, hey guys, here we've got a door to another world, right? We put it as a false door so you know it doesn't go anywhere physically, but this is where you go through to another dimension. Now, Pumapunku is going towards CERN, where it's like, okay, now we're making them, right? We've got ancient culture, we've got ancient aliens who are now making these sites, making these locations, right? And I think like Stonehenge, like, you know, perhaps if you would think that a druid made it to Pumapunku and saw it happening, like, oh, we got to recreate this. How do you know?